Elephant in the room was the subject of one chapter. When a friend has experienced a loss, how do you bring that up? What advice do you have on that front?
Well, this is kind of eye-opening for me, Roger, because I have my whole life been the person who's afraid of reminding the person that that I'm trying to comfort that something bad happened to them.
Yeah.
And it's not just loss, right? It's anything that goes wrong. You have a friend who's sick. You don't quite want to ask them how they're feeling because you don't want to remind them that they're sick. And Sheryl had lots of people do this, and eventually she felt like no one even cared that she had lost her husband because no one asked her about it. Yeah. And we had this back and forth conversation about why that was. And eventually, she started asking people, and they all said the same thing. Well, I don't want to remind you. And she said, well, you can't remind me that Dave died. I know that. And I'm aware of that every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And when you actually sit down and think about it, it is so absurd that somebody who's going through serious adversity could ever possibly be, unaware of that. But I think that we sort of tiptoe around it, thinking that we're going to drag people down. And because of that, we end up isolating people, right? Yeah. We make them feel that they're alone, that they don't have our support. And, they're already suffering, right? It's, they're going through whatever pain they're experiencing. There's kind of an insult to injury addition there, which says now you're going to have to feel like you're all alone going through it too. And I think that's a tragedy. Yeah.
Self-compassion, another, I thought, interesting chapter on that. Why is it so important? What's your definition? Why is it so important throughout life?
So there's a great psychologist, Kristen Knopf, who studied this, and she said, look, we're great at expressing compassion to other people, when we have a comfortable relationship. We're often struck when we go through hardship in our own lives by, there's some people who don't talk to us about it, but there are, some people who just amaze us with their concern, with the way that they show up over and over again. And what we're terrible at is, turning that kind of support inward when we go through any kind of adversity, whether it's loss, illness, incarceration, failure at work. We beat ourselves up over and over again, and we tend to be our own harshest critic. Yep. And it didn't actually dawn on me that this was going to be relevant until one day I got a call from Sheryl. It was a few weeks after she lost Dave, and she said, "I'm so sorry to bother you." And I said, "You're not bothering me. I think it's an honor to try to be there for a friend who's going through something that no one would ever want to imagine." And it was like, there are these moments when really smart people reveal to you that they're human, and this was one of them. I could not get it through her head that she didn't need to apologize. And it got to a point where, the phone would ring and I would hear "I'm sorry," and I would immediately know who it was, even if I didn't recognize the voice. Because she wouldn't even say, "Hi, this is Sheryl."
They're either Canadian or Sheryl. Right?
Possibly both. But finally, it's like you didn't choose this, right? It's not your fault that you went through loss. It's not your fault that your children are now being raised by a single parent. None of this is your doing. Why would you apologize? And finally, I said to her, "Look, we just have to ban 'I'm sorry.' You're not allowed to say it anymore." So she calls me the next day and she says, "I apologize." But that led into a conversation about self-compassion, right? To say that when we are going through difficult experiences, what we often need to do is we need to show ourselves the same kindness that we would show to a friend. Yes. And the experiments on this are really amazing. What they show is that if you just write a letter to yourself, kind of expressing that same understanding and empathy that you would to a good friend who's going through the same thing, you end up less upset, less angry, and it's easier to move forward. Because you say, look, this is, it's only human to struggle when we go through something hard. And I think we're generally not very much in the habit of doing that.